The heat of April 30th, 2025, carried more than the dry Harmattan winds across Burkina Faso. It carried the electric pulse of a continent-wide awakening. From the sun-scorched streets of Ouagadougou to the vibrant markets of Accra, the hum of solidarity buzzed through the air. Thousands gathered, not just in Burkina Faso, but in cities and villages spanning Africa, their voices merging into a singular demand for renewal. At the center of this storm stood Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the soldier-turned-president whose words, typed swiftly into his X account that evening, would crystallize the hopes of millions. His message, stripped of diplomatic jargon and delivered with the urgency of a man who'd rather plow fields than palaces, cut straight to the bone of Africa's oldest wounds and newest dreams. I express my gratitude to all patriots and Pan-Africanists who cherish peace and freedom, Traoré began, his digital voice cutting through the noise like a machete through brush. The simplicity of his opening belied the weight of the moment. Here was a leader who'd swapped the polished prose of statecraft for the raw, unfiltered language of the streets. When he spoke of patriots, he wasn't addressing bureaucrats in air-conditioned offices, but the woman selling Bissap juice in Bobo Dioulasso who kept Sankara's photo tucked in her apron. When he praised Pan-Africanists, his words reached the Ugandan mechanic humming Fela Kuti tunes under a car hood, the Tanzanian midwife teaching mothers to recite Ngugi wa Thiong'o's poems during labor pains. This wasn't politics, it was kinship. The core of Traoré's message burned brightest when he declared the vision of a new Burkina Faso and a new Africa, free from imperialism and neocolonialism. To foreign ears, this might sound like recycled rhetoric. But across the Sahel, where children name their goats after revolutionary heroes and elders measure time by coup rather than calendars, these words land differently. Traoré wasn't speaking abstractly about post-colonial theory. He was describing the gritty reality of a gold-mining town where the earth's riches vanish into foreign trucks under armed guard. He was evoking the humiliation of nurses forced to beg for vaccines while foreign-owned pharmaceutical factories stand guarded behind barbed wire on the city's edge. His new Africa isn't a utopian fantasy, it's the collective memory of what existed before borders were drawn with colonial rulers' pens. What made Traoré's statement revolutionary wasn't its criticism of exploitation, but its unshakable belief in imminent victory. Your active solidarity reinforces our conviction in the righteousness of the fight, he wrote, transforming gratitude into a weapon. Across Africa, from the fishermen dragging nets on Lake Victoria to the Techies coding through Nairobi's power outages, this phrase sparked recognition. Active solidarity isn't retweets or hashtags. It's the Malian teacher using Burkina curriculum reforms as a blueprint to purge colonial narratives from textbooks. It's the Ghanaian Farmers Coalition sending seed banks to drought-stricken villages in Niger. Traoré reframed struggle as collaboration, proving that a farmer's calloused hands in Zambia and a student's raised fist in Dakar are different notes in the same liberation song. The president's vow, "We will never bow to adversity," echoes beyond Burkina Faso's borders into the heart of every African nation, familiar with bending but not breaking. In a continent where mothers carry water jars for miles under militant-controlled territories and fathers dig mass graves with their bare hands, adversity isn't metaphor. Traoré's refusal to bow speaks directly to the Congolese miner surviving underground collapses, the Somali poet risking assassination to recite verses about peace, the Nigerian grandmother hiding Biafran war scars under her rappa. His words reject the lie that suffering is Africa's destiny. When he pledges to remain standing until the true emancipation of our people, he channels the spirit of every ancestor who resisted slave ships and every child who dares to imagine a future beyond refugee camps. Critically, Traoré's message frames victory as inevitable. With you, we are certain that victory over the forces of evil is near. This unflinching optimism radiates through communities where hope has been rationed like emergency aid. In Kinshasa's shanty towns, where street artists paint murals of Traoré alongside Lumumba and Sankara, the phrase "victory is near" gets scrawled beside images of dismantled mining equipment and rebuilt schools. In Johannesburg's hostels, migrant workers debate what near means. Is it years? Decades? The power lies not in the timeline, but in the certainty. Traoré's language rejects the conditional tense that dominates African politics. No ifs, no provided that. Just the ironclad faith of someone who's stared down drone strikes and sanctions and still plants trees knowing he might never sit in their shade. The declaration, "Together, united, we will triumph over imperialism and neocolonialism for a free, dignified, and sovereign Africa," might read like a manifesto's climax. But in villages where French-named cities are being reclaimed as Djenné instead of Djenné, where children quiz elders about pre-colonial kingdoms during moonlit storytelling sessions, Traoré's words are already being lived. Sovereignty isn't abstract when a Senegalese chef replaces imported wheat with fonio flour in school meals. Dignity isn't rhetorical when Kenyan matatu drivers paint their vans with anti-corruption slogans between police bribes. Freedom takes shape as Zimbabwean artists burn British-era land deeds to ash and sculpt the residue into monuments. Traoré's genius lies in framing Africa's liberation as a present-moment activity rather than a distant goal. His X thread didn't announce new policies or list demands. It narrated a revolution already unfolding in classrooms, farmlands, and makeshift workshops. When he wrote, "Your demonstration of support are a ferment that strengthens our conviction," he spotlighted the invisible labor of African unity. That ferment bubbles in the Yoruba potter molding clay into Pan-African flags, the Tigrayan nurse smuggling antibiotics through war zones, the Kalahari bushman mapping water sources on smartphones to bypass corporate land grabs. The evening of April 30th didn't close with Traoré's statement. It ignited a continent-wide conversation. In Lagos, market women projected the X thread onto sacks of Gary, debating each sentence between sales. Sudanese refugees in Cairo camps translated the message into Nubian dialects, their voices crackling over solar-powered radios. Botswana's San youth remixed Traoré's words into hypnotic electronic beats, the bass lines throbbing through Gaborone's nightclubs. This wasn't mere dissemination. It was collective authorship, with millions adding footnotes to Traoré's text through their daily acts of resistance. Burkina Faso's recent moves give teeth to Traoré's rhetoric. The Sankara Schools Initiative, training 50,000 students in sustainable agriculture and solar engineering, turns classrooms into revolution factories. Land reforms redistributing colonial-era plantations to landless youth have sparked similar efforts in Zambia and Malawi. When Traoré speaks of a new Africa, he's referencing the Ugandan engineer who turned Kampala's garbage into biofuel, the Rwandan women coding Africa's first AI model trained entirely on indigenous languages, the Angolan priests incorporating anti-corruption parables into Sunday sermons. The president's critics argue he romanticizes struggle, but April 30th's marches revealed something deeper. In Ouagadougou, protesters didn't carry Traoré's face on posters. They waved pages from Amilcar Cabral's speeches, dog-eared copies of Bessie Head's novels, and smartphones streaming Nollywood films where heroes are teachers rather than warlords. This isn't blind loyalty to a man. It's alignment with an idea that predates Traoré and will outlast him. When he writes, "We will remain standing until the real emancipation of our people," the "we" encompasses the Ghanaian grandmother teaching Adinkra symbols to toddlers, the Sahrawi singer composing freedom anthems in a refugee camp, the Liberian surfers planting mangroves between waves. As night fell on April 30th, the continent lit up, not with gunfire or burning tires, but with the glow of thousands of phone screens. From the Niger River's bend to the Cape of Good Hope, Africans leaned into the blue light of Traoré's words, their faces etched with the quiet fury of those done asking permission to exist. In that moment, the digital and the ancestral merged. The president's tweet becoming a 21st century talking drum, its rhythm syncing with the heartbeat of a continent in motion. The road ahead remains steep. Burkina Faso still battles militants in its northern deserts. Droughts still punish the Horn of Africa. But Traoré's message reframes these trials as birth pangs rather than death rattles. His words reject the colonial curse that turned Africa's story into one of perpetual victimhood. Instead, they resurrect an older narrative, one where a child's first steps in a Kinshasa slum matter as much as any peace treaty, where a Mozambican fisherman's daily catch feeds both body and revolution. As the world slept, Africa stayed awake. In the shadows of baobabs and skyscrapers, Traoré's X thread pulsed through fiber optic cables and whispered through savanna grass. It reached the Ethiopian nun smuggling Bibles printed in Oromo, the Guinean dancer choreographing protest movements into traditional steps, the Burundian taxi driver debating neocolonialism between fares. This isn't about a president's popularity, it's about a continent remembering its power. The Revolution Traoré channels won't be televised. It'll be live-streamed, chanted, plowed into fields, and coded into algorithms. And somewhere in Ouagadougou, a soldier-turned-president keeps typing, keeps trusting that Africa's emancipation begins not with a bang, but with a billion whispered enoughs rising in unison.